Good morning. It's Monday, November 10th, 2014. I'm Steve Miller, and this is the Asia Brief. Just as the release of Jeffrey Fowle from North Korea came unannounced, so did Saturday's release of Americans Kenneth, Bae and Miller. The United States and Bae's family had made repeated calls for his release, as did Miller's relatives. At this time, it's unclear what led to the release of these two men, but it's undoubtedly related to the closed-door negotiations conducted by U.S. Director of National Intelligence, James R. Clapper. A statement from Clapper's office read, "We can confirm that U.S. citizens Kenneth Bae and Matthew Todd Miller have been allowed to depart the DPRK and are now on their way home, accompanied by D&I Clapper, to rejoin their families. We welcome the DPRK's decision to release both Mr. Bae and Mr. Miller. We want to thank our international partners, especially our protecting power, the government of Sweden, for their tireless efforts to help secure their release." It's unknown why Kim Jong-un decided to let the men go free, but with North Korea facing referral to the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity, it can't be overlooked that this might be an attempt by the regime to continue its charm offensive and retool its public image ahead of the vote. I'll continue to update you more on this story throughout the week as details become available. Joanna Hosaniak, Deputy Director General of the Citizens Alliance for North Korea Human Rights, will be joining me on Friday's Asia News Weekly podcast with her thoughts on the release. Japan's foreign minister met in Beijing with his Chinese counterpart. It was the first meeting between the two posts in more than 2 years, and signals continued attempts by Tokyo to smooth out relations between the two countries. The nations have settled on what many have called a landmark agreement between the two countries surrounding the territorial disputes in the East China Sea. The matter is far from resolved, but for the first time Japan acknowledged, quote, differing views on the ownership and sovereignty of the Senkakus or Diaoyu Islands as they're called in China. Chinese media outlets have portrayed this as a big win for President Xi Jinping, but in reality Abe comes out ahead, since Japan is only stating the obvious, that China and Japan have different ideas regarding the ownership of the islands, and their position hasn't changed. It's unclear if this will be enough to get a proper sit-down between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Abe. During the weekend's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Ministerial meeting, members agreed to increase collaboration in efforts to recover assets illegally transferred and reduce graft. Also emerging from the APEC meeting is the possibility China and Russia may grow closer. Russia faces criticism over the way it's handled Crimea, much the way China has been chastised for escalating territorial rows in the region and the handling of the situation in Hong Kong. Thank you very much for joining me today. To get more information on these stories, visit AsianNewsWeekly.net for the show notes. Stay informed throughout the day with the Asian News Weekly Twitter and Facebook feeds. The Asia Brief is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License.